How does a star football athlete, one of the youngest and most talented players in the NFL, end up dead in a prison cell while serving a life sentence for first-degree murder? This is the story of Aaron Hernandez. He was born and raised in Bristol, Massachusetts. Raised by a strict, former athlete father, Aaron was pushed to excel in sports, eventually joining his high school's football team. Dennis, Aaron's father, was a pillar in the community and his home, with a son that idolized him and wanted to make his father proud. He grew up in a violent home, often watching his parents get into fights, and Aaron himself was subject to physical abuse by his father, and as a child, was sexually assaulted by a babysitter. At age 16, Aaron's father suddenly died during surgery, and this is the loss that haunted the narrative of Aaron's life. Friends and family recall things taking a turn in Aaron's life, as he struggled with the loss of the person that had provided him with a model to look up to and imitate. Aaron's mother started dating a family member's husband who moved into the Hernandez home, which led Aaron often going to his older cousin's, Tanya Singleton, place, infuriated by the situation he was in. There, he was introduced to drugs and a bad crowd, including two men by the names of Ernest Wallace and Carlos Ortiz, who became something akin to his bodyguards in later years. He eventually graduated high school early and made a choice that nobody expected. He signed on to play for the University of Florida Raptors, under coach Urban Meyer, at the age of 17. There, it was cemented in his mind that football was his protection, and it was something he excelled in. He rose to prominence in the football scene, and he was able to get away with punching managers when refusing to pay his tab, and was not prosecuted for his potential involvement in a drive-by shooting at the age of 17. Aaron Hernandez played under Coach Meyer for 3 seasons, and was asked not to come back for a 4th, due to behavioral problems and multiple failed drug tests. He had to try getting into the NFL if he wanted to pursue football. He was eventually drafted in the 4th round by the New England Patriots, and played as the team's tight end, at age 20. This is roughly when he made friends with a drug/guns dealer, Alexander Bradley. Aaron played for the Patriots and was a star athlete in the team, breaking records and amassing a huge number of fans along the way. As time went on, however, Aaron grew paranoid and felt like people around him thought he was soft. He started projecting a persona of a gangster, buying guns, and doing drugs, eventually even shooting his friend Bradley over what seemed to be a drug deal gone bad. Fearing retaliation from Bradley, who was set on revenge rather than charging Aaron in court of law, Aaron invested more in guns, expensive security cameras, and even in an armored vehicle. Things took a turn in Aaron's life when in 2013, he was arrested and indicted for the murder of Odin Lloyd, his fiancee's sister's boyfriend, a friend of his that shared his love for football and weed. Evidence collected, which included DNA evidence, tracked movement, gun shells in a rental car under Aaron's name, tire tracks, and text messages, all linked Aaron to the murder scene. While a motive was never elucidated, the jury on trial decided that Aaron was to be found guilty of first-degree murder, and Aaron began serving a life sentence with no parole at a high-security Massachusetts correctional center. Many were confused as to why Aaron would kill a friend of his, who was dating his fiancee's sister. While on trial for the Odin Lloyd murder case, Aaron was also indicted for the double homicide of Daniel Dobreu and Safiro Furtado, 2 immigrants from Cape Verde who worked as nighttime cleaners at a club Aaron attended. Aaron was later acquitted for the double homicide, as it was again hard to pinpoint a clear motive for the shootings, and the defense team pointed to Alexander Bradley as the person who actually pulled the trigger, given Bradley's precedence of dishonesty in the court. There were rumors around about the true reason that could explain Aaron's violence and impulsivity, and these were linked to his sexuality. Was he doing all that to prove himself and his masculinity, in an attempt to distance himself from the fact that he might have been a gay man? This is what a reporter claimed on the Kirk and Callahan sports radio show, insinuating Aaron was a closeted gay man. 2 days after the radio episode aired, Aaron was found dead in his prison cell, having committed suicide. In an attempt to elucidate potential causes for his behavior and murders, posthumous brain studies were conducted with the consent of his family, and found that Aaron had tremendous brain damage, and had a disease called chronic traumatic encephalopathy, which is known to lead to memory loss, depression, and dementia. A lot of people then pointed the finger to football and brain injuries to help explain Aaron's behavior, while others believe he may have been a closeted gay man forced to suppress his sexuality in a homophobic sports world, which may explain his anger, impulsivity, and violent tendencies. Others look to his excessive drug consumption, as he is said to have consumed a hefty amount of K2, a synthetic marijuana, hours prior to committing suicide. Aaron Hernandez was not the first gay footballer in the NFL, and he was also not the first player with CTE to have killed himself. This begs the question as to whether Aaron's actions can be justified by the context of the life he grew up with, the people he surrounded himself with, the excessive pressure that was put on him to excel, and the amount of homophobia present in major sports leagues. Are his actions justifiable? Let us know what you think. Counter-narrative. Odin Lloyd was a 27-year-old man with his whole life ahead of him. Odin lived in Boston, where he played semi-professional football with the Boston Bandits of the New England Football League. He was brutally murdered on June 17, 2013, shot dead in an industrial park by Aaron Hernandez. Aaron and Odin were acquainted through their girlfriends, who were sisters, and the pair seemingly got along well. Both shared a passion for football and enjoyed smoking marijuana together. Odin Lloyd was born on November 14, 1985, in St. Croix in the U.S. Virgin Islands. His family moved to Dorchester, Massachusetts when he was still a kid. The neighborhood was a rough one, and friends of Odin recall that you were either a drug dealer, a customer, or someone who helped drug dealers if you lived there in the 70s to 80s. Football was seen as a way out of the place. If you were a football player, it was said that even the most vile gangster would know to leave you alone. And so, that's what Odin did. He was a remarkable athlete, talented, and he had dreams of his future, where he might have a steady job, a family, and a house. He eventually landed a job at a power company in Connecticut, which is where he met Shania Jenkins, and through her sister, Aaron Hernandez. The pair had very different lifestyles, and Lloyd is remembered as a regular, humble guy. Odin was shot dead in the early morning of June 17, 2013, in a North Attleboro industrial park. He had been invited for a car ride by Aaron and two of Aaron's friends, Ernest Wallace and Carlos Ortiz. They drove for about an hour before the car was parked, and Odin was shot 5 times in his back and side. Odin's sister recalls having received a text from Odin that very same night as he was in the car, letting her know that he was with Aaron. Those close to Odin believe he might have anticipated that something was wrong, and that he knew he might have been in danger. Some, like his close friend Mike Branch, remained frustrated about his decision to even get into the car, and believe Odin's trust might explain why he got in. 9 days after the shooting, Aaron Hernandez was arrested and charged with first-degree murder. He was later found guilty on all charges, and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Aaron's murder of Odin Lloyd does not have a clear motive. Some suspect a disagreement at a nightclub attended by both men might have been the cause for anger in Aaron, while others think Odin might have been aware of Aaron's alleged homosexuality. In any case, Odin's death was senseless and cruel. His family and loved ones remember him as a kind, family guy who wanted to protect and provide for his family, as a celebrity in Dorchester, and as a perfect gentleman. His manager remembers him as someone who was like a little brother to him, and his mother, Ursula Ward, remembers him as a wonderful child who had never done anything to hurt anyone. Ursula demonstrated unwavering courage and strength in her forgiving Aaron for murdering her son, believing the matter was up to God. Ursula Ward, in the wake of Aaron's suicide, sought to change centuries-old law, abatement ab initio, that cleared Aaron's name, to be a voice for other victims out there whose convictions were overturned posthumously. On March 13, 2019, that rule was finally changed by the state Supreme Judicial Court, and Aaron was reconvicted of murder. Odin's murder and his mother's fight for justice reflect the importance of involving victims and their families/loved ones in policy, as certain rules are clearly outdated.